Thank you, Sam. Yes, well, welcome to today's Cook and Book with Sam. Right now, Sam's going to show you guys a great way to create that balanced breakfast with some overnight oats and some toasted avocado toast. So I will let you get going.
All right, guys, we actually have a lot to cover. I actually laid out all the ingredients today and I was like, oh boy, there's a lot of stuff. So I'm just gonna kind of dive right in. While I'm talking, if you guys, I mentioned this in the beginning, but if you guys have any overnight oats and avocado toast are pretty trendy. So if you guys have tried any recipes that you really like or any combinations that you'd like to share, please feel free. I want this to be as interactive as possible. So what we're gonna make today is strawberry cheesecake overnight oats. And then I'm throwing everything on our avocado toast because I always say it doesn't have to just be bread and avocado. We want to kind of dress that up. We want to increase the fullness factor, and a balanced breakfast really is so important, especially when you're working from home. I mean, I know for myself, sometimes, it's maybe 10, 15 minutes before that I get out of bed before work starts. And then, I don't have the time to have a balanced breakfast and I'm grazing all morning. And then I realized, what did I even eat? Like I didn't eat anything that was substantial to help keep me full. So making sure that you are making time for breakfast. And what's great about these is some of it can be prepped ahead of time. And especially the overnight oats, and it could be a 5-10 minute thing in the morning. So it makes it really simple. Okay, so strawberry cheesecake overnight oats, one of my favorite things to do here. So what we're gonna do is I always use a mason jar. What's really nice to do also is we go through peanut butter like crazy in my house. So I actually like to keep the jars once they're done. So I wash them out and I have like a ton of peanut butter jars, or if there's a great jar, this one's a really nice jar too. It's an open, like a wide mouth. Those are really great for overnight oats. And it's also just a nice thing to kind of save on plastic. Not that you're using plastic for overnight oats, but it's a really great way to make the overnight oats in a single serving. So it's really quick in the morning. So when you're making overnight oats, you never want to use steel cut oats. Now, you can use steel cut oats if you're cooking them, but you don't want to use steel cut oats if you're doing a recipe such as this one, where we're going to put it into a mason jar and put it in the refrigerator because those oats don't cook. So I always recommend the old fashioned. I've never actually done it with instant oats. If anybody has, let me know. What I like about the old fashioned is it holds that shape and texture really well. So I think it works really well for the overnight oats. So what I'm going to do is I have a half a cup of oats, and I'm going to drop oats all over my cutting board, which is fine. You guys know that I make a mess when I cook, but usually the end product is great. So I've got my oats here. And what I actually did also was I like to use an unsweetened almond milk as my liquid. Just a reminder, if you are using something sweeter, or even if you have just regular milk, if you're using a reduced fat or a fat-free, it might be a little higher in sugar. So it's just something you want to pay attention to. It's not a tremendous amount of sugar. If it's regular milk, it's more of like if you're using a soy milk that isn't unsweetened, or an almond milk that has sugar in it as well, or an oat milk, something like that. So just something to pay attention to. So I have half a cup of oats. I'm putting a little more than half a cup of almond milk, and I'll explain why in a second. Okay, so I'm putting that inside. The next thing that I'm gonna do, my measuring spoons. So I'm gonna add a little bit of chia seed, just because I really love the way the chia seed actually absorbs liquid when you let it sit in the liquid for a little while. So it really thickens up the overnight oats nicely. And it's the other reason why I added a little bit more liquid in there. So I have a tablespoon that I'm gonna put in. Now, whenever you're adding something like chia seeds or flaxseed, you do want to make sure that you are staying hydrated. There is good fiber in there, as well as good fats, which is really important. So these are also going to help with that fullness factor that I talked about. So have a little chia seed in there. And since we're making, oh, I almost forgot the yogurt. So the Greek yogurt actually helps to also give us protein, right? So now we have oats, which are a whole grain. They're giving us some fiber. They also do have some protein, believe it or not. And then we're adding plain Greek yogurt. I try to use something that isn't as tart, and you might, everybody kind of has their own favorite Greek yogurt. If you are just not a plain Greek yogurt person, that is okay. I always say it. It's a substitution for sour cream. So definitely something to think about. You can use a vanilla yogurt. I always say try to look for a lower sugar variety. There's a lot of those out there now, just because we are going to be adding some other ingredients and of course a little maple syrup for sweetness as well. So just pay attention to the sugar content there. So I'm going to put my 1/3 of a cup in here. And I'm going to grab another spoon. Okay. And then I actually have cream cheese. So I like to use whipped cream cheese because it spreads easier and it actually will mix in a lot easier. So we're not going to do too much in here. I like to do probably like a heaping tablespoon, about that much. Probably about equivalent to the serving size on here. And what I'm going to do is just kind of mix that up. And then I actually forgot to put vanilla in mine when I made it this morning. It was still delicious. So you can definitely add a little bit of vanilla if you're a fan. I always say just be careful with the amount that you add because it's really easy to overdo it, especially because the way that you pour that out, you have to be very careful. The other thing I like to add is cinnamon as well. So I'm gonna add some cinnamon. And then I have my maple syrup here. So I'm going to be very careful with the amount that I pour in. Personally, I don't love a lot of sweetness, even with this type of food. So I'm just going to pour a little drizzle in here. And the beauty of this is if you start with a little less and you feel like you need a little more, you can always add, which is really nice. And I think the cinnamon actually kind of brings out that sweetness as well. So I'm going to mix this up really well. You want to make sure the chia seeds are really well distributed. I remember in my early days of making overnight oats, I used to I just poured the chia seeds in. I didn't even really think about it. And then when I opened it in the morning, there was a literal layer of a solid layer of chia seeds at the bottom. So make sure that you do mix this up really well. And then what I'm going to do is put this in the fridge. That's it. So if you know that you have a busy morning coming up and, it's the night before and you say, oh, I know I'm not going to have time for breakfast. I mean, what did that take? I know I had this stuff measured out, but it was pretty quick. And then once it's done, that's when I recommend adding the strawberries because you don't want them to absorb too much liquid. So it's kind of hard to see, but here is the final product. So has anybody made overnight oats at home, or do they have a recipe that they love? Before we move on to avocado toast. Well, I'm going to prep the avocado toast now. So if you guys have anything you want to share, please do. Okay, so I'm pretty sure everything bagel seasoning is pretty standard nowadays too. Does anybody use everything bagel seasoning? I have a friend who's also a dietitian who loves to put this on sliced cucumbers. It's one of her favorite snacks to get crunch, but also some good flavor. So if anybody does anything cool with everything bagel seasoning, please feel free to share. All right. So, oh, I love that. So Jen says she usually adds banana and cinnamon to overnight oats. Doesn't have to be complicated. If you don't want to add cream cheese, you don't have to add cream cheese. You can add whatever you want. I would say that the main recipe really is the 1/2 cup of oats, 1/2 cup of liquid, and then 1/3 of a cup of Greek yogurt. And then you can really do whatever you want with it because that's going to thicken up. If you want to add flax, chia, cinnamon, banana, blueberries, whatever you have, that's the beauty of it. You can kind of put in whatever you have available or whatever you have around. So you guys definitely let me know if you end up making this at home or what variety you end up making, because it can be really fun. And it's nice to get variety with fruits and vegetables, or at least fruits in a different way. Not putting vegetables in the overnight oats. Okay, so the next one is avocado toast. So what's really cool is you can use different bases for toast. So of course, when we think toast, we're going to think bread, which is fine. A whole grain bread is pretty important only because it's going to have a lot of nutrients, more than the white bread typically has. So it's going to be more filling with fiber. It's going to have a lot of vitamins and minerals, a lot of different things. Ezekiel, yes, that's what I have here. How did you know? I was just going to talk about that. So Ezekiel is actually a sprouted grain bread, which is really cool. And what that actually means is the nutrients are a little bit more bioavailable, meaning that your body can easily absorb them, which is really cool. So I have Ezekiel bread here, but something else that I've seen and tried before, I'm gonna say like, doesn't come out 100% every time, is sweet potato toast as a base. Has anybody tried that? That's kind of fun because it can go sweet or savory. And I actually recently saw a recipe with avocado for avocado toast and cottage cheese, which I thought was really interesting. I've done like cottage cheese on my toast, but not with the avocado. So that's going to be something I'm going to try because that's a great way of getting protein if you're not really a big egg fan. Okay, so when we're shopping for avocados, this is like the hardest thing, right? Picking a ripe avocado or picking an avocado that you know is going to be ripe by the time you need to use it. So if you're looking for a ripe avocado, usually it is kind of this brown color. We'll still have green color to it. I've opened a perfect one this morning, so fingers crossed I can get 2 perfect ones in a day. What you're gonna do is I always recommend not squeezing the avocado because what's gonna happen is you're gonna bruise where your fingers are. Just putting it in your palm and just like gently putting a little pressure. And I think the avocado board says it should almost feel like a firm tomato, so it should have a little bit of give. If you have super unripe avocados, something that you can do is put them into a brown paper bag with an apple or a banana and just kind of fold it over. And if you let it sit for 2 to 3 days, it should ripen a little quicker. So the avocado ripeness trick is it's always a really hard thing. So keep your fingers crossed for me, guys, that this one will be nice and ripe. And I did not cut this in half, but that's okay. Yeah, this one's okay. So it looks like it's so interesting too. Whenever you open an avocado, the pits can be so many different sizes. So I opened one the other day that was like half this, the pit was half this size and it was so much avocado, which is awesome. You feel like you hit the jackpot, right? But you want to be careful with the amount that you're having, right? So if you had a third or a quarter or even half of that avocado, it'd be more filling than if there was more pit area or a larger pit in there. So just something to keep in mind about like amount of avocado. So whenever I'm doing this, I'm going to try to use my tool here. I have a little tool that I haven't used. So it looks like I have a little bit of brown from the seed and a little bruising. Looks like somebody might have picked it up in the supermarket, or maybe I squeezed it while I was holding it. So just something to keep in mind. If you open your avocado and it's brown or even like a yellowy, just discard it. I mean, I know it's an expensive thing, but you'll get better at choosing ones that are ripe. It's frustrating, I know, but it's just definitely something to think about. So I'm gonna just scoop about a third of this out here, which is always a mess, but it doesn't matter because we're going to mash it. I'm gonna mash it on my bread here. And then I mentioned before we started recording that I actually had hard-boiled eggs this morning, which I haven't done in a while. So I had to look up some recipes because I know there's like a very specific way to do it to get it perfect. I think I did pretty good. The peeling was a little tougher than I'd like for it to be, but if anybody has any tips and tricks about hard boiling eggs, that is awesome. It's also really nice to have on hand for these types of recipes when you don't have time to scramble or make an over easy egg, whatever it is you like to typically have. So it's definitely a nice thing to do. So I'm going to I sliced up my hard boiled egg. I'm going to put some egg slices here. I think I did. So I put the eggs in cold water, boiled it and brought it to a rolling boil, then turned it off and let it sit for about, I think it was like 11 minutes on the hot. You guys know I have an electric stove top. So I let it sit on the hot stove top. And then I ran it over cold water and it worked pretty well. I would say I was pretty pleased with how well it worked for how long it's been since I've done it. So if anybody has any tips or tricks on that, I am open to suggestions. Okay, so I put my little hard-boiled egg in here. I sliced it up, got some yolk, a little bit spread out well. And what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna put on some everything bagel seasoning because of course. And if you guys have been watching my cooking demonstrations, you guys know that I absolutely love smoked paprika. They smoke the peppers before they dry and grind them, so they have this like smokiness flavor to them. So I'm going to add a little bit of that. And then probably should have done this before, but that's okay. I actually really like to use fresh lemon juice. So I added salt with the everything bagel seasoning. So I don't want to add any more salt, but the lemon juice might give it a pretty good flavor. Lemon juice is also a great way to preserve avocado. So if you can squeeze some lemon juice, and I'm going to do that before I store this one, the rest of this avocado here. So I tried this on camera probably a couple of weeks ago and it worked. So again, keep your fingers crossed for me that's going to work. So what you're going to do is I have a skewer here and I have a lemon. So I'm going to just put it right into the tip, the end of the lemon. I'm just going to move it around a little bit. And then, so I feel like I kind of got enough there. I'm going to just squeeze. There we go. I don't know if you guys can see, but we're getting some lemon juice out, which is awesome. So just a little bit. And then there's no pits, which is fantastic. Has anybody tried this before, or is this new for you guys? Let me know. The last two things I'm going to add, I was telling Jen before we started recording also, I made a sriracha. Well, I sought out to make a sriracha honey like sauce for this. Just not a sauce, something I was going to drizzle. And we didn't, our honey was like, it wasn't good. So I actually used the maple syrup because I did have some of that. It's amazing. And it's just a little bit, it's not a lot of sweetness. So again, I need another spoon, bear with me. So I just took some sriracha and some maple syrup and just whisked it up. And I'm gonna just drizzle some of that here. It smells so good, guys. I was telling Jen, I wish we could like, I wish I could share the smell through video. And the last thing is just an option if you wanted to add a little bit of cheese as well. This would also add some salt. Smell-o-vision, I love that, Amanda. Perfect. And then we've built our avocado toast. You guys kind of see. So what's great about this, again, is we have whole grain bread. Again, this one's sprouted, which is really cool. The avocado is going to give us some heart healthy fats. It's also going to give us great fiber and potassium. And then we also have the egg for protein. And of course, we have the yolk, which is very nutrient dense. And we also added a little bit of feta cheese, but that's always optional. You don't have to do that. And then just for a balanced breakfast, I thought I would add on here just a couple of sliced apples. So that's another option as well. So just to get a little fruit in there if you feel like this isn't filling enough for you. But something that I noticed myself, and I'd be interested if anybody wants to share if this is happening to you too. If I don't have a filling breakfast in the morning, I notice that I'm snacking so much more throughout the day. But this morning, since we sampled everything I made today, we made a nice balance with it. And I'm fine. I'm ready to eat now. And I ate at 8:30, which is great. So if we don't restrict, not that we don't restrict, but we pay attention to balancing out our breakfast, we can really make a difference in how much we're snacking throughout the day. And snacking is not a bad thing. It's just when we start to graze, and I always say mindlessly munch or mindlessly snack, that's where those things get a little tricky, right? So does anybody have questions? What's going on in there? Anybody do avocado toast? Give me some ideas. I know Jen said she puts bananas in her overnight oats. Anybody else have anything they want to share? While we wait for any other responses that anybody wants to share, I also just wanted to talk one more time about our cooking book. So we're going to be doing this every time I give a cooking demo here on Let's Talk Wellness. So all you guys would have to do is call me to book your exam. And then we would, when you complete your exam, then you would be eligible for an Amazon Fresh gift card of $50. And again, we all need that. we all need some grocery money, right? Especially when you're trying things. I always say sometimes I have some ingredients that I use when I'm cooking. I'm thinking of next month, probably going to be using like coconut aminos, which usually run for like $6 or $7 a bottle. So, it definitely helps to have a little bit of extra grocery money, right? All right, guys. Well, if nobody else has any other questions, I'll turn it back over to Jen to close us out.
Thank you, Sam. That looks absolutely fantastic. I could smell it, taste it right through the skin. What I do want to just share with you guys is your voucher code for attending today's Let's Talk Wellness. So you do get 100 Be Well points. It is located within the screen here. And we look forward to you guys coming to next week's Let's Talk Wellness, where we're going to be really focusing on mental health month for May. So if you guys have any questions, feel free. We will stick around for a little bit longer. But otherwise, have a great day.